Hi guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Zachary, I'm a huge fan of your work from Shazam to all of your recent stuff, which I've covered positively, might I ask, your last six films or something. So I'm seeing
Thank
everything
you.
you're doing. So it's so nice to meet you, truly.
Pleasure.
And thank you. And to Quentin, Terrence, and Marshall, thank you guys for giving me your time as well. Your work in the film is incredible. I have 10 minutes. I'll get right into the questions so I don't waste your time because
Thank you. Cool.
these
Yeah.
press circuits can be annoying. So Zach, I'll start with you. So you in the film portray Nick, and you've talked about your acting process in the past, specifically the way you try to access empathy through it. And for a person like Nick, whose trauma is so real, how difficult is it to protect your own mental space while you're tapping into this person who went through a very intense emotional event in his life?
Well, it's incredibly important. I don't know that I do it that well all the time, depending on the story. I mean, this is the most intense story that I've ever been a part of. This is the most intense film I've been a part of. As far as the subject matter is concerned, how the story plays out, the trauma that you're referring to that Nick absolutely endured. All of that. When you're an actor, obviously this is you are tasting and experiencing a fraction of what actually went down in the real moments that Nick and Marquise and Corey and Will were experiencing. And still, because of the extremes that we were going through in this water tank together, the bonding experience that was, having to look at each one of these guys as they were quote unquote dying, and having to let go of them and access that in my soul and in my own heart and mind. It's mildly traumatic. It's a strange thing to say because it's not actually happening, but you are trying to emulate that as authentically as possible. So I did my best to protect myself and protect my heart and my mind, but it definitely wasn't a perfect process. I mean, it was a very intense, very gnarly experience to make this film. I'm glad that we made it through it. We made it through it together. We made it through it, and we're all still friends. And though I have not gotten to see Terrence or Quentin or Marshall much since the filming, um, but I'm so grateful for all of them and grateful for the experience.
So obviously, you're seeing that as, Nick, who is this observer to this, but, for Quentin, Terrence, and Marshall, this is for you three. You were playing people who, they experienced this event. They were real men with families who tragically lost their lives. That's really difficult to reckon with. I have to imagine in some ways where Zach is able to get outside of that because, there's maybe a better ending for him. I wonder, how do you three balance the fact that you are portraying these people? How do you honor their memories, their families, while also finding the freedom to perform and in some ways make the character your own?
Mhm.
I think like Zachary, he said, I just realized that as well. He actually had to portray someone who's still here. There wasn't a lot of videotape or anything on Corey. So I did what I could, but at the same time, going into any of these roles, I feel like long as you understand human empathy, it was kind of easy to take myself out of it and be able to be free and perform. And so I'll speak for myself. I feel like I had more of a freedom than Zach because Corey, like I said, he's not as famous, but at the same time, there was no video or nobody really. He wasn't a public figure as big as Nick is now because of the book. So I think we had a little bit more freedom than Zach did. So yeah.
Yeah, and Will didn't have a huge digital footprint, so I would say I approached it, with what I could find with him online, what I could talk to Nick about as his friend, what was on the page, and then who I was at that time in my life. And I don't think we had I think we had a lot in common. So it's a lot of it is a version of me when I was in my mid-20s, and you know. I hope that anybody who knew him, one of my favorite moments is I posted a story of just goofing around on set, and somebody who did know Will DM'd me and said, like, you're totally channeling Will right now. And that just felt really good. But, sometimes these are happy accidents and, We'll see. I don't know it hasn't been out yet, so we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And for myself, first, I got to say, Cole, I really like you and your energy. Honestly, I've just really
Thank you.
appreciated that. I absolutely hate your shirt, though.
Oh,
I'm
I
just
know. I know. I was sitting there and I'm like, oh, Bulls immediately. I'm still stinging from that
no,
loss.
no.
My
I'm a
God,
huge Miami Hurricanes fan, so I just had to get that in. But
my dad's a Hurricane. I
yeah,
get it.
no, no. All jokes aside, I think for me that was kind of my first and most important goal with this movie. Obviously, Marquise is no longer with us, so I didn't have his eye to hold up to like Zach did, which is a real pressure in itself. But the thing that I was thinking is, Marquise has a father. Marquise had a wife, a daughter. Um, and those people have gone through such a traumatic experience, losing a son, losing a husband, a father. I, like Marshall as well, had family members of his reach out to me in Instagram and tell me stories afterwards, which really was nice. But the thing that I wanted to do the most was to not make it any worse for the family members and friends of Marquise that are still here. I think that for me was the main goal, that like just don't add any more pain for them. And I took that very, very seriously. I think we all did. I think we all took it very seriously. Anytime you're dealing with a true story, and in particular a true story that is as traumatic as this one, you just take it with the most sensitive gloves that you can. And I was thankful. I think we all really approached it that way. There was no real joking about this situation. We all understood the magnitude of it, and brought that every single day. And I'm just very appreciative that we did that. And I personally just really wanted to open up myself to tell that story, tell Marquis' story, and really try to just honor him and his story and his plight as much as possible.
Thank you. And one of the most remarkable things about the film is the way that all of these roles are portrayed so respectfully. Zach, I want to pass another question to you, which is looking at your recent work, American Underdog, The Unbreakable Boy, Sarah's Oil, all films I really like. They are obviously, large shifts from these bigger IP roles like Shazam or Chuck. And they are these very deeply personal films about perseverance and faith. Obviously, you've been outspoken about your faith. I do wonder, what is it about the specific struggle of the human spirit that is drawing you to these types of roles at this point in your career?
I think that as storytellers, there's so many stories that we can tell. We can tell just a straight comedy and make people laugh, and I love doing that. And we can do a horror movie and make people jump, or we can tell, really intense dramas and make people cry. I think that when given the opportunity to tell a story that inspires, if you can make people laugh or cry or jump, but also inspire them in some way to remind them of the strength of the human spirit, that we all have within us the ability to overcome any number of obstacles. It's something I need to remind myself of constantly. I'm so grateful and I'm so blessed to have the career that I've had, and yet I still struggle with a lack of gratitude. I still look at other people in my profession and go, oh man, if I was just there, or I just had this,
Mhm.
or if I could just, and I get down on myself and I think, well, will I ever be able to reach those goals or do these things or whatever, and a lot of that is, as I've unpacked in lots and lots of therapy, just childhood trauma. It's things that have followed me throughout my whole life. So there's definitely that. I think the element of wanting to tell stories that inspire people. I think that for one reason or another, I keep gravitating toward, or rather, they keep gravitating toward me, these stories. Ever since Shazam, I've been fortunate enough that I'm in a place in my career where it's a lot of incoming phone calls as opposed to the vast majority of my career prior to that, which was still grinding and auditioning and auditioning. And, and our industry is also rapidly changing right in front of us. I mean, it's imploding. There's a lot that's going on and a lot that I could speak to, but I will say that, Unbreakable Boy, American Underdog, Sarah's Oil, Not Without Hope. These were offers that came to me and scripts that I read, and they resonated because they were powerful. And I felt like these were stories that were worthy of being told. And that's not the case with every script that comes across your desk. Sometimes you're like, it's okay. It could be a paycheck. It might shoot in a location that could be fun. Maybe some of the people that are involved could be fun to work with. But is that something that I really want to go and give my energy and my life to? Particularly when you know that shooting the movie is only just part of the job. This is a whole other half of the job that a lot of people don't even think about, is that then you have to go and you have to be proud of what you did and go talk about it over and over and over again, so that you can hopefully, inspire other people to want to go out to the theaters, which is a very difficult thing to do right now. So I don't know. I think all of those things, those all kind of come together to lead me to where I'm at in my career right now.